Cape Fear Business Roundtable is sponsored by two branding partners located under one roof right here in southeastern North Carolina. Pioneer Strategies is a strategic communication firm focused on helping you build success through effective strategic communication. Pioneer Specialties is your promotional products partner, ready to help you through the entire process from product research through product delivery. For more information about our sponsors, visit capefearbusiness.com. Welcome to Cape Fear Business Roundtable. I'm your host, Frank Williams, and today we have with us Tony Caggiano. Did I get it correct?
You did. Awesome.
Got the name pronounced correctly with ADAComplyGuy, and I'll let him tell you what that means and what he does in just a minute. But Tony, first of all, before we get into business, thank you for taking the time to be with us. And
Thank you.
We're in an area that's growing very fast and lots of people moving in from lots of places. So tell us where you're from, and if you're not from this area, how long you've been here and what brought you here.
Yeah, I've been in the Brunswick County area for going on 3 years now. My family and I moved here from the Wake Forest area. We lived in a town called Youngsville, just north of Wake Forest, for about 10 years. And we just loved this area so much that during COVID, we were just like, why aren't we living where we want to live? I was working remotely, and so we just took the plunge and came on out here. So before that, I'm originally from Massachusetts. My wife is from Connecticut, but we've been down here for quite a while, so we love it.
Well, welcome to God's country as we believe it to be. And well, obviously, we're going to talk about work, but when you're outside of work, what is your favorite thing in this part of the state to do, or place to go, or favorite non-work related activity or destination?
I just love to explore with my kids. We love finding new and exciting things in Wilmington. Wilmington is a haven of history and different things. So, and Myrtle Beach isn't too far, and in between there's so many things to do here. So we love to explore. And if there's anything to do with cars and car shows, my kids and I love it.
Those are definitely popular, and it's. Yes. I'm not a gearhead myself. I don't know that much about them, but it's always cool seeing old cars that people have maintained or restored.
Yes.
Well, tell us a little bit about your career journey. Obviously, you've got your business now that we're going to talk about in a minute, but what led you to this point? Tell us about your background and how you got here professionally.
Yeah, well, it's kind of awesome how I got to where I am. I started out years ago going far back into my college career. I started in engineering and wound up with a business degree, and because of that business degree, I went to the path of going into insurance. And when that really wasn't what I wanted to do, I found myself building computers back right around the time Michael Dell started. I didn't go down the same path as Michael, but, I started building computers and built my own IT company. From there, and really loved the IT world. But at the same time, I had been involved a few years earlier in Boy Scouts, as a boy and then as a leader and whatnot. And I got involved in working with a troop of disabled scouts, and I worked with them for many years and just loved working, giving back to people who, just needed a little extra help, had, disabilities or different abilities, as I like to say, and help them achieve their goals and such. And so over the years, I loved to give back to, worked with the Special Olympics in many ways, United Way, other things through my entrepreneurial journey, owning my own businesses, trying to give back to that. So throughout my career, I've owned several businesses. I've also worked for corporate America in IT, and just always done both. And when I came to, find this opportunity, it was just more like a calling and a mission rather than just another, business to start. So.
Right. It's interesting. I went to NC State, and I started out as a computer science major thinking I was going to be an engineer, and somehow wound up with a degree in communication and public relations. So those career paths are similar. And it was, when I took the computer science classes, I realized that the programming was something I enjoyed as a hobby, but I did not want to do it for other people, especially when I co-opted a couple of semesters. And then I didn't get along well with calculus. And,
I took many semesters of calculus. I totally understand that. That's for
and
sure.
so it was not my thing. But and I've also was in Boy Scouts right here in Leland and was on the district executive committee. So
Oh,
we've
very
done
nice.
some similar things. So we'll talk later about some people we may probably both know that are were involved in some of that. But
Nice.
well, tell us about ADA Comply Guy and what you do and how you help clients in this area.
Yeah, I'd love to. So ADA Comply Guy, the name kind of came about for my kids. When I told them what I was doing or whatever, this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. My kids were a little younger, and my youngest was just like, "Hey, you're like the ADA Comply Guy," and it just kind of stuck from there. So
Simple.
that's how the funny name came about. But what I do is really educate. First we do things in threes. In three steps. We educate, we help businesses, comply, and then we get them funding. So what we do is we go in and we help businesses understand the laws and the requirements about ADA compliance in the digital world, because a lot of people have seen and understand ADA compliance, in the physical world, handicapped accessible parking, wheelchair ramps and braille menus, just the things that we've seen since 1990, since the ADA came into play and to be a law. But since 2015, it's really started making its way into the digital world. Since COVID, especially, more and more people are purchasing online and using the digital world as much as we are in our physical brick and mortar. So, by helping businesses understand this and helping them properly comply with the laws, we're helping them not only, touch on a regulation that they're required to do, but we utilize it as a marketing tool to help them grow their business. And we're able to do this because it's not only their website that we want to make compliant, we want to look at other marketing that they're doing. We can help them caption Facebook ads, or we can help them with their podcast and transcriptions. And those are things that are accessible features, which are then helping them qualify for the tax credit that is free money on the table for most businesses. It's something that we can help them get every year to pay for marketing that is accessible to people with disabilities.
That's interesting. And I know that's something I'm somewhat aware of, but I'm no expert on it. But, we do some work in the digital world, and it's evolved so quickly that I think a lot of people don't understand the importance of it. Especially, you get a small local government who is struggling to get a website up, but they don't understand the rules they're required to comply with. Your larger ones probably have an attorney on staff that knows something about that, but your small ones, it's evolved so quickly that people probably don't even know that those laws exist, much less that they're not compliant with them.
You hit the nail right on the head, and that's why our work to me is so important. And I did start a side project called the Web Accessibility Awareness Foundation, which is a nonprofit just to bring awareness, to help people understand this is a law, because the Department of Justice has done a very poor job of letting businesses know that they're required, and businesses are now getting blindsided by frivolous lawsuits by many attorney firms across the U.S., for a law that they don't understand. And there's no statute of limit. There's no, once you receive a letter saying you're not compliant, there's no time to remediate. You either pay a fine or, pretty much a compliance fee to the attorney, and then you have to go get your website fixed. So it's really unfair the way it is right now, and hopefully things will change in the future.
I'll be sarcastic for just a moment. You mean to tell me the federal government communicated something poorly? And I'll be sarcastic again. You mean that there was a frivolous lawsuit filed over it?
There's over 10,000 a year towards small businesses for their websites, and that's what we're trying to help businesses understand and get this out there. That this is a law. This is something you have to comply with. And we work with mostly businesses, like you were saying, smaller businesses with 30 or less full-time employees, because that's who's eligible for this tax credit. The larger guys, they have their web teams, and funny enough, the large corporations in the beginning were sued, like Home Depot, Chick-fil-A, Sephora, and they have their own staff to go in, and they can pay the fines up front. They can pay $50,000, $150,000 in fines and then go fix their website. But funny enough, just as a side note, a lot of these large corporations, take Home Depot for instance, you probably haven't noticed over the past 5 to 7 years, the orange in their logo has changed a little bit every single year, pretty much, because they didn't want to go and comply with the color of their logo being out of compliance right away. So they would pay the fine every year, and now they finally changed the orange to comply within the specs. But if they had changed it overnight, it would have been like Cracker Barrel. We all know what happened with Cracker Barrel. So it's really, it's something that the big guys can afford to do and pay the fines, whereas the little guy, one fine can be $55,000 for a small business, put them out of business.
Yeah.
So.
Well, talk about some of the things that businesses could be at risk from not doing properly, because I think most people will probably not know anything you're getting ready to share.
Yeah. So a lot of the things there's the ADA goes by the guideline from the WCAG, which is the Worldwide Consortium for Accessible Web Design. It's a big, long name, but it was put together guidelines for what makes a website accessible. The ADA right now is a very gray area. It's the Wild West in ADA because the Department of Justice doesn't have a actual rule saying this is exactly what you need to do to be ADA compliant. But you have to go by these guidelines by the WCAG. So, the only thing businesses can really do is use that as a guideline, do as much as they can, and if they get a letter, hope that they're compliant enough. What we do is we help them understand what are the things that the courts are going to see if you do go to court. What are they going to look at, which is the most high risk things that you need to take care of, things like alt text for your graphics or captions for your videos or contrast or certain things. And then there are a lot of minor things that, if you're a small business and you don't have thousands of dollars to go rebuild your website or get it compliant to the 90 to 95% compliance rate, you can go in and do things that you can afford. And if you got a letter, you can show the courts, if you had to go to court, you can show that you've done your due diligence to do as much accessibility as you can in your business. Because they're not going to expect a business that makes $50,000 to spend half their annual revenue on fixing their website, or even, 10%. They're going to see, okay, you've done what you can, and it's a stepping stone. As you grow your business, you're going to do more to make your website more compliant. So this is how we help businesses understand what do they really need. It's different for a solopreneur than it is for, a small machine shop that has, 20 employees, but they're making $10 million a year. They're still a small business, but they're making the revenue that they can make sure that their website is compliant enough,
You mentioned, as an example, the alt text for images. A lot of people may not know what that means. Like, that's a good example. What does that mean for the layman out there who knows nothing about this?
So alt text was really designed initially for disability, for accessibility on websites. Back when HTML, which is the underlying code of most websites out there, whether it's a builder with Wix or GoDaddy or whoever, most websites use HTML as their base code. And alt text was built to help put in descriptors for people who who have seeing impairments. So if they have a screen reader, and they hover over a picture, if they're legally blind and can partially see it, they can't quite make it out, or if they're, totally blind, legally blind, then this will actually read to them the descriptor of that graphic. And this has to be, to be ADA compliant, it can't just be like a keyword, because the problem is, over time, people forgot about why it was originally made and use it for SEO for Google. Because Google came in and decided, okay, this is a great thing to use for ranking. So they use it for their SEO. And so a lot of people over the years think that's what it's there for. And they just put in blue car or, red dress or something like this. And it's really not descriptive enough for accessibility. It has to be something more like, is it a blue car? Is it a Matchbox? Is it a cartoon blue car? Is it a real 65 Mustang driving on the highway? Those are the things, the descriptors that, so if people are using a website that are legally blind or completely seeing impaired, can utilize their screen readers to help them navigate the site better.
Are there any other examples like that that are big examples that people may not have even thought about?
Big examples for alt text or for other?
Not alt text, but examples such as alt text, but other potential landmines that people might step on and not know about it?
Yes, captioning is a big one for videos, because a lot of times people will utilize AI and rely on YouTube, for instance, to caption their videos. And I'm sure everybody here who's watching this podcast has watched a YouTube video and seen either the dialect of the language was too hard for AI to interpolate it, and so it's totally off, or it could perceive the wrong message by captioning it wrong, or even the simple fact that it may be somebody who edited a video and made the captioning too flashy, or the contrast of the script too bold, or not too bright enough, or not bright enough, or it could be the wrong font. So it's hard to read. It could be too fast. So those are the things that have to go into making sure that your alt text is done properly. So that way somebody who is hearing impaired can follow along. It has to be synced with the video so they can follow along and really understand the context of that video. So those are some of the big things as well.
And it can be so complex, but are there any types of businesses that are more at risk than others? Obviously, you mentioned the size of the business might be one thing. If you're a $50,000 business, they're not going to expect you to spend $50,000 complying. But
right.
For example, would somebody whose website is a one-page informational website be at the same level of risk as somebody who you're going on their site to buy products?
Probably not. And a lot of times, those type of sites, we can easily help them, either do it themselves, or, we can show them, guide them easily. When it comes to larger websites, that's where, we consult with them to help them make sure that all the different things are done properly. But you had mentioned, are there some businesses that are more prone to these lawsuits as others? The answer is definitely yes. E-commerce is at the top. And it has been for a while, because that's where people go, a lot of times to make purchases. And there's a lot of people who have their own Shopify sites or other type of e-commerce sites that are at high risk, because, those are the main places where people utilize most of the time when they go purchase. So, if you have a Shopify store with 1,000 SKUs on it, it's going to take you forever to make sure those alt text is done unless you have help, and just different things like that. And another big one is small healthcare. So your dentists, your chiropractors and such, because they're not only governed under the ADA, they're also required to have accessibility under the Healthcare Act. So they're at risk for double whammy if they don't have this done. So we're out there trying to help, all businesses that we can, but a lot of these types of businesses are more at risk. So we're really trying to spread the word in those areas as well, because that's who's getting hit the most with a lot of these lawsuits.
Was there anything else in general that you think people should know about this topic of digital ADA compliance?
Absolutely. The biggest thing is it's not only, some people think of it as, oh my gosh, it's another government regulation. But what we try to help them understand is they can use this as a huge opportunity. There's money on the table for them to just ask for. The disabled access credit, which is a tax credit, it's not a tax deduction, it's an actual dollar for dollar rebate every year that they can acquire of up to $5,000 that they can put back in their pocket, and they can apply that towards the remediation of their accessibility with the ADA for one, but also a lot of times that won't cost $5,000 a year. So they have a large chunk left over to apply to different things. We can show them if they're doing Facebook ads, for instance, and they haven't caption them properly or proper alt text, we can help guide them and show them what they can do to make sure that those would comply. If you have a podcast and you transcribe it, as long as it's done properly, then you can utilize the cost of producing your podcast to get that tax credit as well. And there are other things. We actually have a new thing that we're doing. So chatbots on people's websites, we're compliant with accessibility and accessible for this tax credit in the past if they had the option to roll over to the number and talk to somebody. If somebody could not have the dexterity to type into a chatbot, if somebody could then call them, then it would be deemed an accessible expense. Now, with the realm of AI voice, we actually have the ability to install an AI voice bot. So if somebody has a chat bot or opts for the AI voice, now somebody who is, somebody who can't type or seeing impaired can now just talk to somebody, and it could be an AI. So that becomes an accessible expense. So those are some of the things that we can help businesses, utilize and get for free, because we're going to utilize the tax credit, help them grow their business utilizing all this new technology.
A couple of questions I usually ask are, what made you decide to get into this and what you love about it? And I think you've already covered that, because your passion for this comes through. But
yes,
obviously there are probably other people out there who say they do the same thing you do as far as this. What would set you apart from somebody else in this space?
I really focus on, a couple of things. I really focus on the smaller businesses, and that's what I was saying, because we do have that tax credit. But what really sets me apart is I've always tried to make sure that, it was done properly from the beginning, because, first of all, I'm an advocate for the disabled community, and we wanted to make sure that it is done properly, because there are other widgets out there, or other companies with software. Some people call them widgets, some people call them accessibility software, that are coded improperly. And a lot of them, they could be the free WordPress plugins, or it could be, there are some companies out there, which I won't go into names right now, but some of them are under class action lawsuits because they just sell software that they throw on a website saying, okay, AI is going to take care of it and you'll be compliant. Well, unfortunately, thousands of people utilizing these companies are getting sued still, because their marketing is false. The Department of Justice and the circuit courts who rule over enforcement do not see AI as a full compliance solution. AI is used, like we use AI to help scan websites, but then our team of professionals goes in to make sure that the alt text is properly done and the caption is properly done. So, AI is a good tool, but it's not a one and done solution. So what sets us apart is we make sure we go in and we feel comfortable utilizing our solution. If somebody got a letter, we can utilize our support team and our legal team to help guide them and help them fight that. So we've gotten people come to us saying, we've already got a letter, what can we do? And we're able to go in and help them remediate their website at the same time, have a letter drafted back to this frivolous attorney, saying we've already done what we needed to do, and help them, guide them in the right way. So
obviously this is an important topic for businesses, local governments, anyone else. How can people find you? What's your web address?
My website is ADAComplyGuy.com. It's very simple and easy enough. There's a little bit of information on there, but if anybody wants to reach out direct, my business is still small enough. We are growing, but, I'm the one who takes all the calls. I want to meet the businesses directly. I want to get to know your specific, issue with ADA and accessibility, and find the right solution for you. So they can reach out. Just my email is tony@ADAComplyGuy.com.
And I would encourage anybody who's got questions about these issues to contact you. And with that, we'll change gears and start to wrap it up a little bit. I love for people to share a few lessons that they've learned along the way, because, obviously I think anybody who's listened to this, unless they're an expert in this, is going to have learned something already. But what have you learned during your career that you wish you had known when you started your career?
Oh, that's easy. And that's one thing that I, to this day, utilize to, to help me succeed is I learned early on that failure is not a opposite of success. To me, failure is a learning lesson. Every time that you don't acquire or achieve what you're going for and you feel like you failed, it's not really bad, because if you can learn something from it, take something from it, and grow, that's how you can, achieve super success in the future. So I
agree with that 100%. We've been reading a John Maxwell book with my team, and he talks about failing forward. If you fail, you fail forward and learn from it. And I'm going to paraphrase this quote from Thomas Edison, but it was something to the effect of, I didn't fail to create a light bulb 900 times. I found 900 ways that didn't work.
Yes, exactly.
And obviously he was eventually successful. And that's not a word for word quote, but it's something to that effect.
Yes.
A similar question, if somebody was getting started in business or getting started in a field similar to what you do, what advice would you give that person that's starting out?
educate yourself as much as you can and never stop learning, especially like in this business. I was aware of helping people with disabilities in different ways before I got into this. And I was also very familiar with IT, but molding the two, when I first came in, I was of the mindset of, oh my gosh, I can just get this software and resell it and put it on somebody's website and it'll be fully ADA compliant. If you look back at some of my old, YouTube videos or such, that's exactly what I'm pushing. And then I found out about the laws and what's going on and how that wasn't compliant. So, if you're starting out in business, don't be afraid, of your old self. Continue to self-improve, learn, read books, and, continue to evolve. You're going to make mistakes in the beginning. Maybe laws will change. In my case, laws change, technology changes, and so will how you can help your client. Especially with AI, there are so many different ways that you can evolve and, include AI. This is a bit of advice, if this is part of the question. Include AI in your future in some way, and that will help make you relevant in what you're doing in the future.
I think that's great advice, especially continually learning. So many people think that the day they receive their college diploma that they're done learning, and those people usually work for people who continue learning.
Yes. Yep.
Well, final question, and you can give whichever one you want, but you mentioned reading books. Either what are you currently reading, or what podcast do you listen to, or how do you go about developing yourself professionally?
I don't. When I find a good book, I like to read it over and over again. So I have a whole bookshelf of books that I reread them every couple of years. So the one that comes to mind was my first book I read when I was in college that really helped get me on the entrepreneurial track. Is called $1 Million Habits by Brian Tracy. So,
somewhere on one of my shelves.
That was an early read for me and really changed my mindset. So if you're looking to go down that path, you're listening to this, check out that book. It's an easy read, but it's so powerful.
And that's certainly a good read. And I thank you for joining us today, Tony Caggiano with ADAComplyGuy, and we appreciate you being with us. And if you're
awesome.
If any of you are at home watching this or listening, we hope you'll tune in next week. And if you want more information or want to follow our podcast, you can do so at capefearbusiness.com. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a great afternoon.
Thanks, Frank.